Welcome.
Hi.
So you are a resident of East Palestine, correct?
Right.
So walk us through what you've been experiencing the last couple of days.
Oh, wow. It's been really overwhelming and surreal and shocking and horrifying and just dehumanizing. Really, yeah, a lot of big feelings, a lot of like disbelief, really.
Yeah.
It's scary. It's very scary. We don't know what's safe, where is safe, what to do, anything.
And my
Refresh
understanding.
everybody's
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
memory who may not be familiar. What is the situation with your 9-year-old son?
Right.
So he's immune compromised. He has pretty bad asthma. That's what hospitalized him before. It was one of the scariest moments of my life. He has allergies as well. And the doctors recently, over the past few months, he's been in and out of hospitals. He had COVID, then he had some other infections that he was not himself. He was this little boy who loved playing outside, running outside, playing in the creeks, playing sports. And he was just so sick from all these things. So we were really afraid whenever this train derailment happened. That night, we were right at the mile marker from it, and we were closer to the school that was an evacuation zone. So we decided to stay sheltered in place like the rest of the town. About 5 hours in, I started smelling it in the house. I started getting sick, and then literally not even 5 or 10 minutes later, my son, I heard him. It sounded like a cough, and I thought it was a cat at first, and then I realized it was my son puking. And I ran to his room, and he was not sick at all before this event. And I ran into his room, and he was just like projectile vomiting. And when I walked in the room, I like hesitated for a minute because it was like you could tell maybe it was more drafty in there, but you could tell there was like a big cloud of some kind of chemical smell more than the rest of the house. And he was projectile vomiting, and he was shaking, and he said he couldn't breathe. He was begging for water, and I didn't know if he was going to stop breathing. I didn't know what was going to happen at that point. And like, I didn't even clean up the throw up. I ran out of there with him. I already had a little bag packed because at that point I was concerned because this fire had gotten so big, and at that time we didn't even know what was burning on the train. We had no idea. It took over a day for Norfolk to even admit that there was chemicals on the train. And then even after the evacuation order was lifted, they said, oh yeah, by the way, there was 3 other hazardous, like highly carcinogenic chemicals on this train, which was terrifying. I mean, all of this has just been really horrific. But yeah, so my son and I, we ran out of there. My partner was with us. We didn't even get to bring our kittens at that point because it was just, I didn't know what to expect with my son's health. It was just really scary, and I just knew we had to leave. I said we have to go right now. Yeah, but
how's your son doing? Is he doing a little bit better, or?
Yeah. He's so he threw up one more time about an hour after we left in a hotel that we had evacuated to about 20 miles away.
Okay.
And then after that, he was okay. He has been absolutely fine since. He did have about 2 days after that, he developed these rashes on his arms. They were just splotchy, looked like eczema. But it's very similar to the rest of the kids in town right now, and a lot of adults as well. But those went away too, and he's been fine. But we haven't been back. He has not been back at all. Today was the first time I actually returned home for an air quality test, and I actually couldn't be in the house for more than a few minutes before I started feeling sick again.
Are the kids okay?
Yeah, so about a day later, we were able to go back. My partner went back and got the kittens out of there before they started really like cracking down on road closures and stuff for the people like right at that mile marker. Things were changing by the hour. Just state police and undercover police and emergency vehicles. 50 different fire departments showed up. Like, it was just so chaotic, but we were able to slip in between some of those barriers before they really started like really cutting off stuff even on our like local highway into PA. And we got our kittens out of there.
Yeah,
So.
I think I heard one of them meow. Actually,
Yeah.
they were answering my question. They were like, "We're okay." Well,
Yeah.
we're certainly glad your household is all okay. Although it's so terrible what you're going through. This is absolutely terrible.
It's inexcusable. It's just absolutely inexcusable.
So speak a little bit to your experience when you tried to attend the EPA.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that.
So the one today?
Yeah.
I was surprised that it wasn't open for residents. I thought that was odd, because it didn't. I only had heard about it maybe a couple hours ahead of when it was actually happening, and we were actually already at the park meeting with some reporters and some other local people in the gazebo across the side of the park. So we walked over there, and they were denying us to go in the building and listen and ask questions. Especially, it was concerning for me because last night was our town hall meeting, which ended up having probably at least hundreds of people, maybe if not thousands of people, a lot of media. The crowd was angry. The residents were angry. That was very evident, and I'm wondering if they wanted to do just a press like media only today, so our voices couldn't be heard. That they could just kind of write the narrative that they wanted the press to show to the rest of the world.
I think so. So did you hear any of the video of the EPA guy speaking? Because I would like to know how that makes you feel. Do you feel like he's lying to you? Does it make you angry?
I haven't heard too many things. I really haven't had a chance to catch up on it entirely. I did see some of the things that they said they were going to crack down on federal protocols for the trains going through, because, I mean, they've literally lobbied against some of these safety features that would have prevented this disaster.
Yeah.
I would
lobbied successfully against. I mean, both parties have been part and parcel to listening to these lobbyists and preventing any of these safety regulations from being passed, but also the train company. I mean, one of the things that the workers were saying that we shouldn't be running trains that are 150 car lengths long. One of the employees said, this is one of the train workers, there should be some limitations to the weight and the length of the trains. In this case, had the train not been 18,000 tons, it's very likely the effects of the derailment would not have been, the effects of the derailment would have been mitigated. So this worker is basically saying that they're adding way too many cars and way too much weight to an axle that's already compromised, and that could have been avoided that way as well. So there's just, again, it's motivated by greed.
Mm-hmm. Before we let you go, could you speak a little bit about the town hall last night and your experience there as well?
I felt very angry after I left. I felt like that was kind of what I was expecting them to do. They just gave us a lot of runaround, vague answers that kind of dodged our questions, and they just used as many words as they could. Like, they weren't really saying anything while they were saying it, and there was a lot of long-winded I don't knows. There was a lot of I actually stayed over at the end of it for about an hour trying to talk to as many EPA, whoever I could before they moved their stuff out. And I was asking questions to Ohio EPA, and he directed me to the US EPA. I went to him. He said, oh, the Ohio EPA guys who you want to talk to. And neither one of them had the answer. Nobody could answer the real actual questions. A lot of residents had a pretty strong voice. There are women. There's a woman who lives real close to me. Her house was condemned. They said that her air tested okay first, and then they went back. She demanded more testing because she's by the contaminated creek, just like I am. And they condemned her house. They're paying for her to move out, all her moving costs. And they're still telling people at this town hall meeting that they're not finding levels in people's home. And that's just not true. And she's not the only one either.
Well, how can they how can they say that when it's like the way you're describing it, it's like most people are showing these various symptoms, be it like a sore throat or a headache, and you're talking about these rashes that a lot of people have, especially children.
We're really concerned. It's scary. Yeah, so
scary.
We're asking that. We're asking, why are we getting sick? And we couldn't get an answer.
So one of the things the EPA is saying is that the homes that they are testing, that the air contamination is fine. They've actually said this about several of the homes, which I doubt is the case.
So the readings they're showing us that they are, but our houses smell like formaldehyde. They smell like overwhelming chemical smell. People are still getting sick. It doesn't add up. Like, either the numbers you're getting need to be lowered or you're lying.
Right.
Like, people are sick. Answer why. We didn't all just develop the same problems just coincidentally when CDC data shows these are the symptoms from this exposure. It's bullshit. They're lying to our faces.
Well, the other part too is the long-term effects of these chemicals. Even in right now, we're discussing like the short-term things, like the rashes, the vomiting, headaches, these types of things. Long-term effects could lead to cancer if you're exposed to this, in perpetuity. So there's that concern as well. The EPA hasn't really said anything about that. Yeah.
So I do know, at least some of these, especially the vinyl chloride, but the other ones are just honestly as bad. 40 years. It can take 40 years to show up in a person. And then these other ones, if you look on the CDC website, they have an agency for toxic substances and disease registry that shows the exact levels. But I mean, they don't have much data from this exposure other than like PVC warehouses that people work with this stuff, or the world wars. The world wars. It's crazy.
It's very scary. No, it's very scary. So my other question is, what are they taking care of your hotel bills? Is somebody stepping up at least to provide some sort of relief? Is FEMA coming in and taking care of families? Like, how is all of the logistics being played out here?
No. So Norfolk Southern had hired a claims department, that they had an assistance center set up. They were reimbursing people for spending their own money, reimbursing with receipts only for a mile radius. And then once they tested with the air quality team that they hired, once they tested our air as okay, they were no longer reimbursing anybody. They were offering inconvenience checks. But yeah, it's really we're on our own here now. Yeah, we're just running out of time, running out of money. We're told that FEMA wouldn't accept this as a normal disaster, a regular disaster. They gave some
because it's not a natural. Okay, it's
because this does not happen. The last one, one of the last ones that happened, was 1/10 of the size in Paulsboro, New Jersey, in 2012, and they try to cover it up the same way. People are still getting sick there. This is, I mean, the railways are just not being regulated. They're lobbying against putting hazardous labels on these trains. This train was not marked hazardous. Why? We need answers. We need reasons why they're not being held accountable.
I agree. So you're not getting help from Norfolk Southern. You're not getting help from the government. I'd say both of them are responsible for this disaster and need to step up to the plate and pony out some funds.
Right. Biden just shut down the railroad strike. A lot of these workers were warning against something exactly like this happening.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. He should not have done that. Again, that was in the name of commerce, right? We can't have the railroad workers on strike because that will shut down the economy. All of these decisions are ultimately motivated by profiteering. They're ultimately motivated by, capitalists and corporate America having it their way all the time to an excessive amount where it's just not tenable at this point. And I worry, we have another derailment that just happened in Detroit 2 hours ago, right? So this is also a Norfolk Southern train. So obviously there's clearly a pattern here. There's a problem.
Yes.
So thank you so much for giving us an update here. And we wish you guys to stay safe. I mean, it's so terrible what you're going through. People want to know, though, is there anything out there? Is there like a GoFundMe, or
I was just
is there any
donations.
way that citizens can help at this point in time, or is anything in development that you know of?
Yeah.
So the only thing I know of, and I've been getting that question a lot, so maybe I might have to set something up myself. I know there are a lot of us that are still in hotels because even though they say our air is safe, we're getting sick and we smell it.
Yeah, I wouldn't go back. I don't blame you.
No, I know there is a GoFundMe set up, but I've also been warned that they can withhold funds sometimes. So I don't know if I don't know much about that myself, but maybe I need to step up and take care of that because I haven't heard of anything else. Maybe somebody else in town has, but not me.
Okay. Well, if anything changes in that department, please feel free to send it our way, and
we'll share it. Yeah,
we'll definitely keep in contact with you here, and thank you so much for sharing this information with us.
Yeah, so most of the information that's being shared around with local residents, what's really happening is in our East Palestine Facebook groups. Really, there's people from out of state coming in and saying this is the only place we're really getting at the true what's happening on the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
So I will keep you guys updated.
I believe it. All right,
thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Best to the kid and the kittens.
Thank you so much.